Hello, Arc Junkies, and welcome to show number 239. I hope you all had a great weekend. As this episode comes out, I'll be in my second home, Houston, Texas, attending the AWS Welding Summit. I plan to get a few in-person episodes in while I'm there. This should be a great event, so if you're attending the summit, please stop by and see me and grab an Arc Junkie sticker pack. In today's episode, I'm chatting with my buddy Scott Prince. He's a welding instructor up in Rochester, New York. Scott's a great dude and super passionate about his program. We talk about his journey to becoming a CWI, how he got into education, and his passion for teaching. We'll get right into it right after a quick word from the folks that keep this program up and running. Today's episode of the Arc Junkies Podcast is brought to you by Levrack, the ultimate storage solution for your home shop or business. Levrack makes storage, saving space, and organizing super easy and convenient. The Levrack system is built super solid right here in the USA, and it can hold over 3 tons of capacity. Levrack combines the best elements of industrial pallet racking and mobile aisle shelving. Their patented suspended high-density shelving system maximizes your current storage capacity and provides a clean, organized, and efficient alternative to ordinary static shelving. That's what I love about this product. The mobile aisle storage system allows me to store my items vertically in a convenient sliding shelf, saving me precious floor space. The Levrack system is designed to fit your needs. With multiple sizes, workstations, add-ons, accessories, and racking options means your Levrack fits your space and workflow. You can get a turnkey system or customize a system that fits your exact needs. Check out their website and find the storage solution you've been looking for at levrack.com today. We're also brought to you by Rockmount Research and Alloys. They make rods and wires you need for the most difficult repairs in the most undesirable conditions. These are the conditions maintenance welders have to deal with on a daily basis. The equipment's typically covered in mud, dirt, paint, oils, and all kinds of other stuff, which makes standard electrodes inefficient to make a long-lasting repair. Rockmount rods are different. They excel in this type of area. At first, I thought Rockmount rods were snake oil until I tried them for myself. I painted up some plates, covered them with sand and cutting fluid, and welded right over top of it with no porosity, no undercut, no cold lap, and achieved great penetration at lower amps than an equivalent diameter 6010 or 7018. Rockmount rods are legit and boast a higher percentage of elongation and a higher tensile strength than rods and wires meant for initial fabrication. Rockmount makes rods and wires for every situation to include cast, low alloy, stainless, dissimilar alloys, and more. Check out their full line of products at rockmountwelding.com. And while you're over there, take a look at their abrasives, blades, bits, and welding chemicals, and save 10% off your purchase when you use Arc Junkies 10 in the discount box at checkout. Get the job done right the first time, every time with Rockmount. Alright, you know what time it is. Fire up your machine, drop your hood, and turn me up 5.
You're listening to the Arc Junkies Podcast, helping you make every weld better than your last with each episode. And now your host, Jason Becker.
All right, Scott, welcome to the Arc Junkies Podcast. I got to apologize up front, and thank you so much for allowing me to reschedule a couple times. So we were supposed to record yesterday. However, as most people know, I've had some air conditioning issues in the new BuzzBox studios. So I had like this small portable AC unit that just was not working. It's like a sweat box in here. And when I had to, it wasn't too bad, but when I had to record, I would have to shut the air conditioner off, and it turned into a sweat box really quick. So I finally broke down and bought this mini split system, and yesterday I got it installed. And I was like, all right, I'm on with Scott at 5 o'clock. Should be able, if we start this thing at 9 a.m., should be able to get this thing completely installed. We get all the way up to the point where we have to do a vacuum on the mini split. It's actually a pretty simple system to set up, and we get to the point where you have to pull a vacuum on the system just to check for leaks, make sure nothing's in there. The unit comes pre-charged with the Freon and everything that you need. Mm-hmm. So we ran up to the store. I was like, okay, we should be able to get this at like Home Depot or Lowe's. Struck out at both places. I was like, okay, maybe the auto parts store has this little connector. It's like an adapter for R410 air conditioning. Yeah, refrigerant or whatever. So I was like, it can't be too damn hard to find. Mini splits are very common. A lot of these stores are selling them, so that obviously they're going to sell this adapter, right? Wrong. I made calls to, like I said, Home Depot, Lowe's. We tried Ace Hardware. I even went Harbor Freight. Tried to go to Harbor Freight. Nothing there. Tractor Supply. Can't find it anywhere. You would think a guy that's been in Florida for the past 30 some odd years would know somebody that deals with HVAC. But there's not a lot of people that deal with HVAC in my network, which I need to change that post haste. And so my buddy who's helping me run this whole system, because he knows what he's doing, but he doesn't have that adapter. He's got all the stuff for automotive, but nothing for the adapter. So he ends up and calls one of his buddies. He's like, "Oh yeah, I got 2 of them right here in my case that I'm looking at." We're like, "Oh sweet." So I asked my buddy. I was like, "Where's he live at?" He's like, "Oh, he's out in Geneva." I was like, "Fuck, that's an hour and a half one way." So I'm like, "Okay." So I was like, "Damn it." Well, if this is the only thing that we need to get this job done, we got to go get it. Because my buddy, he was like, I can come back, sometime next week and get it. And I was like, shit, I don't have time, because he's heading up to he actually left for Georgia this morning. So I was like, there's no way. If I don't get it done now, it's not going to be done for, like a couple of weeks before our schedule can line up again. So we drove all the way out to Geneva. So it's like a 3-hour round trip to get this one little $14 adapter. And so I had to reschedule my podcast with you. We actually didn't finish up till a little after 8 o'clock last night. But damn, so to answer your question, why I'm wearing a hoodie, this AC is freaking kicking. I got it. I've actually had to shut it off twice today because it was getting too cold in here. And I got it set for 75.
Oh, wow. It's 72 up here today. I mean, the windows open. It's like beautiful. It's been like 100 degrees for like the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, I've had nothing but overcast all day, so it's been a nice day to be out in the studio anyway. But now that I have central air conditioning, it'll freeze you out. So I told my wife, I was like, I had to go put on socks, had to put on a hoodie. I was like, damn, it's cold out there, but it's nice. So when we had Nate and Rush down here 2 weeks ago in the studio, they kind of felt my pain, and that's kind of why the episode was so short, because it was Rush, Nate, and then Jesse, their camera guy, and myself all in this one studio that's 120 square foot, and we're just like sweating profusely, and we're like, all right, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna cut this episode short, go out, get something to eat, and find some air conditioning, because it was blistering hot that day anyway.
Right, I gotta understand that, man. I mean, the shop I've been doing some working recently, they've got a big beam welder in it, and like there was like no airflow. It was like stagnant as could be, and like it was 90 outside, but it was probably close to a $120 in there.
Mm-hmm.
And you walked outside and the 90 felt like you were in air conditioning. Or like, oh my god! I mean, it was just been intense for the past couple of weeks, but we fought through it.
That's like our shop at the school is not air conditioned, and like August, July, like all those like the hot summer months, it's just sticky and really, really humid. Humidity's high down here in Florida anyway, but like when you walk from the shop into the office area, where all the admin people work, they can't be uncomfortable. So they've got like a nice central AC. When you walk in there, man, it's like walking into a freezer.
Yeah. My shop's not AC'd either, but they had an issue. Like I have one of the old school rooms, and when I inherited it for my class, a lot of stuff had sat idle forever. So the blower system on top had a heating system. Well, it wasn't functioning right. So like I turned the vents on, and within like 20 minutes during the winter time, it was already like 30 outside to be like 30 in the shop. We're like, what's going on, man? So they got that all fixed up, and then it went to like 95 degrees constantly. We were like, oh wow, like where is this happy medium? We must have had them in there, I want to say 5 or 6 times just to get it right, because it was insane.
Yeah, and there's not too many shops that are like air conditioned, so that surprised me. We went to the Instructors Institute back at the end of July, and we went to a school in Miami, and they had an air conditioning system in there, but it was like a commercial grade air conditioner, just kind of retrofitted for this one room, and you could hang freaking meat in there. It was insane. Like I didn't think, I had to bum a jacket off the Lincoln guy. I was like, Patty, I was like, do you have a spare jacket? It is freezing in here.
It's not often you say that living in Florida.
Yeah,
it's freezing.
Exactly. Or in a welding shop in South Florida. I was like, man, I did not expect this. Everybody's walking around, icicles hanging off their beard, teeth chattering and everything. Yeah, it was pretty.
That's a good problem
bad.
I don't have to deal with. I don't get that. I don't have that luxury beard like you have,
You got to let it grow, man.
Dude, I can let it grow for a year, and I don't even think I'll get a quarter of what you got. No flavor saver here.
Right. Damn, so we ended up meeting with, through a mutual friend, Charlie Cross at a Lincoln Electric. When I went to take the welding procedure specification class, he was talking about you, and I was like, oh, yeah, I know Scott. How did you and Charlie link up?
So I linked up with Charlie. I was studying my CWI. I had worked for a guy named Jimmy Gizzy who helped put me through put me through the program he had at his company. The CWI he had, I had worked with on previous occasions. His name was Rich Mangino, and he was their CWI, and they were looking to give him some help. And one thing kind of led to another, and he had convinced me to come work for him, and I got to study under Rich for probably almost a good year. And Rich is like very thorough, very meticulous when it comes to this kind of work. So I got to see firsthand, what it was really going to be about. He was really good about helping me get through the books and studying and answering questions. And then, they come up and says, look, we're going to treat you like you're going to be a certified weld inspector. You're going to have to make these decisions. Rich is going to oversee them, but we want to put you through the pace. And they were second to none. I mean, Rich put a lot of time into me prior to me getting to Charlie. So when I finally arrived at Lincoln, that's when I had met Charlie, and I went up, and I call it the 2 weeks of hell, because I did the pre-seminar and then I followed it up with the AWS seminar. So I had Charlie Cross and Charlie the Ritchie in my seminar, and I spent a lot of time with both of them. And I had another guy that I worked a lot with. His name was Leslie Crane. He works for BXWT, and he was very book smart, and like we worked and studied together. He was pretty good with me too. And like me and Charlie just kind of like, hit it off. I mean, I was one of the first ones in the morning, and, I would stay, I would ask questions, and he was very, very good to me. I mean, he was very good to everybody in that class, but I was up there over my birthday, and he had found out it was my birthday, and they were doing the Blodgett seminar, and we had gotten the ISC book. And I said, it's cool. He's like, Dwayne Miller is teaching it. And I said, I'd like to meet the guy. He says, okay, come with me. Walks right in. End of the day, Scott, this is Dwayne. I got a chance to talk with Dwayne, and Charlie was hanging out. And I says, man, why don't you sign this book for me? He says, happy birthday. Good luck to you. It's Dwayne Miller. And, everything was pretty much on after that. I mean, I did the following week, I did the seminar with him, and I ground through it. And that Saturday that Friday, we were told we were going to be part of a new testing system where they were eliminating questions off of answers off of each question you had for your test. And we found that out Friday, and they were adding 15 additional questions, to put into their database.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh boy. So they're like, well, you're going to get a little bit extra time. And I'm like, oh God. And I already know in my head, I've been focused on, because one thing Charlie was really adamant about with us was not to focus on getting 100. I mean, he says, you get a 72, he goes, you're in. He goes, you don't want to get the 100. He goes, but you don't want to get the 72. He goes, you just do the best you can. So I had it in my head, okay, I'm just going to do the best I can, and that's going to be it. And like I said, he gave us a lot of work. A lot of the nights I was up till midnight, 1 o'clock studying. The last couple nights we were there, I think it was 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. I was back up at 6 to head back to Lincoln. That Friday, he's like, look, him and Charlie Ritchie were like, don't even worry about studying. He goes, if you guys want, he goes, we can't tell you can't. He goes, but just take what you learned all week, go home, get a good night's sleep, and tackle it in the morning. So like I went out and I got a nice dinner, and I went back to the Airbnb I stayed at. I think it was like 6:30, and I sat down in the chair and I turned on the TV. And when I woke up, it was 7 o'clock the next morning.
Shit.
I'm like, oh wow. I'm like, I mean, considering I think the last 3 days I was there, I bet you if I had 10 to 12 hours of sleep, that was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was a big deal for me. Because I mean, I've been doing this now for 30 years, and I thought I knew welding. And when I got there, he was like, pretty much take everything you know and just throw it out the window. And I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, this is for real.
Mm-hmm.
And it was. And some guys struggled, and I mean, there were spots I struggled with, but I just dialed in on those and fought through it. That Saturday, I had a 10 o'clock test appointment, which was running a little behind, and I ran into some of the other guys in the morning, and they're like, they're like, some of them were scratching their head. They're like, this is kind of rough, and I'm like, I'm like thinking, oh crap. Like I started to get that like set of nerves to come in, right? And I was like, I don't know. But I'm like, I'm here. Like I've gone this far. I says, what's the worst that can happen? I go, I fail, and I walk home with my tail between my legs. And I says, I can't say. It's more than some people can say. I can say I tried. So I got in and I went through the whole spiel, and I come out and I was like, whew, it was, I had like tears. I'm like, this was like intense. So like, it was 2 weeks of just intensity. I'm like, what did I just put myself through? But I felt stronger at the end.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, I could take what I knew, pass or fail, and I knew how I could apply it. So I came back home, and on the way home, Charlie called me and he's like, how do you think you did? And I was like, so like you said, I'm going to leave it there. I'm not going to worry about it. I says, I still got 2 other parts I got to go take. I says, and what happens, happens. And I got back to Rochester, and I took my part C here, and then I had to drive to Tonawanda the next day to take my part A because I couldn't get them both here at the same in the same vicinity. So I'm like, all right, and I knew that I passed both of them before I left the parking lot. I had already got the email thing with the preliminary pass, and I was like, sick. I'm like, now I'm just waiting on part B. Well, now we're like mid-October. Most of November goes by, and I still haven't seen any results from AWS. And it was right around the holiday, Christmas time. I don't know, it was like 11 o'clock, and I get a ding on my phone, and it's from the American Weld Society. And I looked at Corinne and I says, I can't. I says, I don't, because I've been on nerves. I kept looking every day at the website to see if something had popped, and nothing was. And I'm like, maybe I failed. Maybe I didn't. Maybe there's something, because I did have a couple of questions that I, put the discrepancies against, and I didn't like the way things were worded, and hopefully things rolled in my favor. And she looks at me and she says, I hand her the phone, and she opens the email, and she gives that added suspense of, well, wow. And I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, come on, just tell me. I'm like, I just want to either have a good holiday or I want to be miserable. She's like, you passed. I'm like, don't lie to me. She's like, are you kidding? She goes, you passed. And then look, and there it was. And I was like, yes. And then I think I called my buddy, Rick. I don't know. I think it was like midnight. And I hear, hello, Scott. I'm like, hello, Ditchard. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I passed. He's like, seriously? I'm like, yup. He goes, it's midnight. I go, I know. I said, I'll talk to you tomorrow. But like prior to getting to Charlie, my friend Richard, his wife Danielle, was like super huge with me. Like my ADD was all over the place. I wanted to study this and go here and do this and then do this. And she's a teacher. And I said to her, look, I says, I know you don't know anything about this. I says, but I know by you helping me set up a game plan, I says, you can help me figure out what I need to do and where my weak spots are and what I want to study on and where I need to focus. And she took everything I had about 6-7 weeks prior to me leaving for Lincoln, my WIT books, anything I had. And we went through it, the code books, the questions, the study guides, everything. And she like organized up all this stuff. She made like computer programs for me, and we worked, and she read things with me so I understood them better. And like she was super huge. Like there's a lot of people that I owe thanks to where I am today, but when it came to this, I really owe Danielle a great bit of gratitude for what she did to me, because she didn't have to do anything, but she saw that I was struggling and she jumped in and helped. And I'll tell you what, that girl can still put me through my bases to this day. So I told her when she's a retired teacher, she's going to make a great CWI.
There you go. Yeah, man, that test isn't it's not a joke. And to do, and that's what I recommend to people is like go find the 2-week seminar. So like the 2-week seminar you took, that was 2 weeks at Lincoln, or was it one week AWS, 1 week Lincoln?
So it was 1 week Lincoln, 1 week AWS. Like
Okay.
Lincoln offered their pre-seminar course,
Mhm.
and it was smaller. You didn't have as many people, so you could get some more one-on-one attention, and you could ask some more questions. Where during the seminars, you're kind of limited because they got a schedule. You got to go,
Yeah.
go, and I found that to be very good for me. And I was more prepared coming in. By that point, I was able to navigate the code books and respond to things faster, because of that and the help that I had prior to. And, I tell, like, I'm working with a guy right now at the company I'm doing work for. He's learning how they want him to be their CWI. So I just sat down with him this weekend, him and his boss, and I said, okay, look, I go, here's your API book, here's your D1.1. I'm like, you need to decide which way you want to go because they worked at D14.1. So, and this kid's great, very great, but he's very smart at the same time. So, he's looking at everything right now. He's actually just signed up to go up to Lincoln to take the pre-seminar course. I just wanted him to go take the seminar course so he could see what this was really about. And I says, look, I go, if you want to do this, I says, and I can help you going forward. I says, if you don't, then we'll have to figure out another bridge in the meantime. But I think this kid's going to do very well. I mean, we're just starting to get things in order down for him. And like he's looking at API right now, but he's also got my D1.1 book. So he's looking at which direction he wants to go.
Mhm. And that's the thing. Everybody's like, oh, and then like some guy made a post on the episode I did with Chloe Hudson the other day about taking a CWI was, oh, I hope you didn't fall for the, taking the D11 trap. And it's like the best thing you can do is like study in the area that you're most confident or that you deal in the most. So like if they're doing D14.1 work, they're probably better off testing to D11. And everybody's like, oh, it's a 700-page code book. Yeah, but you're only really using, like maybe a third of that code book. And then the index in the back is like super helpful. But like, I think the best advice, like Charlie gave you is forget everything you know about welding and inspection because it's completely different once you sit in that classroom and understand the information that they're looking for. I mean, in having a background, I feel that having a background in the welding industry, like having hands-on welding and hood time and all that, that's just going to help you when you go to sit for that exam and understand and digest some of that information a little bit better, as opposed to, just walking in there with a bachelor's degree in a welding related field and sitting down and being like, oh yeah, I'm very smart. I graduated with high marks at school, and you walk in there knowing absolutely dick about welding and go to sit for that exam. That's a hard road to hoe, man.
Well, I had guys in my seminar that just came in that were just NDT techs, and now they got a set of fillet weld gauges, and they just do a lot of RT and UT work. And they're like, "How do we even use these?" And it's like, "Well, what do you know about UT that you can help me with?" And in the meantime, I'll teach you how to use these fillet weld gauges. It would turn into that. One hand washes the other.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of that. And like I said, my buddy Wesley was very book smart. So when it came to working on stuff, and he was able to put it into context of, okay, think of it like this, and bam, it clicked. I mean, I'm not going to say, and I got overly great grades on everything, but I was very proud of what I did because I didn't think I did that when I got my results. But it's just one of those things.
Well, that's the cool thing about the wallet card that they give you is it doesn't have your grades on it.
Thank God. But hey, I can still say I passed at the end of the day. If I got to show you my grades, I'm still proud of them.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, they weren't phenomenal, but they weren't bad either.
Yeah. But I mean, you need a 72% across the board to pass. So, I mean.
Yeah. And that's how it was drilled into our heads. Look, you need a 72. Who cares if you get a 72 or a 92? Either way, you passed. So even if you're in line, but at least I know the spectrum of things that I had to work on. And those were the things I went back and I tackled.
Yeah.
I didn't screw around and be like, oh yeah, I don't need this anymore. I mean, I'm in my books all the freaking time. And when I'm not in those books, I'm in, like I said, right now I'm currently working with a lot of D14-1. I'm working with a lot of D15. I mean, I've got a rail job that you've seen that I've been working on, that essentially those pictures, that was just a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
Turned into a nightmare for a company. And, it's, working with DOT, and, everybody's got their own set of specs. I mean, you can't expect to know everything or remember everything, because it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah. But I mean,
And
once you go through that program and understand and learn how to navigate those different code books, that's a tremendous, benefit. If you're going to be an inspector, just understanding how to navigate and figure out the information that's in those, and dissect that and interpret the information. Like API 1104, that's not a code that I'm super familiar with. That's an area that I want to get into a little bit more, along with ASME Section 9. So that's another one. I mean, those are pretty much the three books that most people deal out of, the three most well-known. So I'm pretty confident navigating through all the D1 books, or the, D14, D17-1. But the API and the ASME, that's the ones that I want to go through now. So I'm actually signed up for a class in October to learn ASME Section 9 with Walt Sparko. I've heard he's the man when it comes to ASME Section 9. That's the guy to go see.
Yeah, so a lot of my background prior to this was in Section 9, because I've been doing pressure vessels, that's been my background for probably closer to the last, I want to say 21 years. And I got my book sitting over here on the shelf, and I took my CWI for API because they went hand in hand,
Mm-hmm.
kind of. I mean, it's all. I mean, I talked periodically with another guy, and I'm sure this name's gonna Elmore, for Marion testing. Like, if I've had any kind of questions when it's related to ASME, I can ask him, and he'll be like, "Yep, okay, look at this," or "Do not pass code collector 200. Have a nice day." I mean, he's been very helpful with a lot of stuff when it comes to that as well. So,
Mm-hmm. So what did you do prior to getting into going to get your CWI?
So I worked for a place called Chandra Products Incorporated. I spent at least 16 years there. Um, Prior to that, I kind of was just into more like process piping. I did some sheet metal. When I got out of school, I really, I kind of looked at, what do I really want to do? I mean, I worked in a couple little job shops, and I had some good mentors along the way. But what it was when I got to a place called Consular Filtration Products, is when I first got my first chance to do pipe welding, and I just fell in love with that. And that's kind of the area I stayed in. And then I had went to work for Chandra, and I had spent a lot of time there. We built these big units called R100s. They're inline pressure vessels, do a lot of cleaning, filtration for oil and natural gas. And I really started to hone my technique in there, because we did a lot of X-ray, a lot of UT, a lot of mag particle. So, I mean, you weren't getting away with anything. You weren't getting away with putting down a crappy weld. You were going to get it when it came time. So, I mean, I did a lot of that, and, kind of became the go-to guy. And I just got to the point now where I was like, all right, I'm 45. At this point, I was 42. I was like, I need a change. I need to find that next level. And I was like, okay. So a buddy of mine, Lee Alford, was my boss over there at the time. He's a senior CWI, and he travels a lot, does a lot of pipeline. And he's like, well, maybe you should start going chasing that. And I said, all right. So, like I said, one thing led to another, till I wound up with, like I said, Jimmy Gizzy at Advantech giving me the opportunity to chase it. And, Lee has been very instrumental in things. I had another guy, Gene Short, and he's a level 3, and he's right up there with Daryl. I mean, those guys are just geniuses. And he worked a lot with me, and he made sure that I had everything available to me resource-wise that I needed. When it came to any kind of non-destructive testing, visual, penetrant, mag, he made sure that I was good to go. And, it was those, okay, how many will leave that? There was no rock unturned when it came to these guys. They gave me everything. So, and that's kind of what's led me to where I am now. I mean, my dad was very big on what I do now anyway. Because back when I was in high school, like my father just retired. It's been about, I want to say 5 years now. My father's a retired welder, and he used to work for General Railway Signal. And I mean, I remember watching him get up in the morning when I was a kid. And I mean, he would do his 12-hour days, and he had the shit beat out of him, but he didn't complain about it. He kind of did his thing. And I mean, I wasn't like the perfect kid either. I mean, I put him through hell and high water, him and my mom. I mean, I swear, like in school was around, there was a direct line to him because you just never knew what happened, right? I get myself into some shit, and all of a sudden there he was. And he's like, he goes, what did you do now? And I was like, and he's like, shut up, don't talk to me. I'm like, okay. I just sit in the car and look out the window. And, so when I got into, I took a BOCES program as well. And I was training for what they call Skills USA now, which was VICA. And he came in and he surprised me. He spent the day with me and we worked on different stuff to get me ready for the competition. It was pretty neat. And I saw a lot of things like my teacher didn't show me that he did. Like my dad learned how to weld in the Navy, and he had all kinds of different tricks up his sleeve, which was neat. And I kind of always sat back and I watched some of those tricks, but like I said, he was probably the reason I got into doing what I'm doing, because, it's that whole, you always find somebody to look up to, and I got a lot of people I look up to: Charlie, Lee, Gene, even you for that matter, because, you've been very instrumental in some of the stuff I've done. But when it comes down to it, he's the one that put me where I am today. So seeing his drive and passion for what he did was what brought it to me.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm really grateful that I had that opportunity. We spent the last 7 years together at Chandra before he retired. And it was weird. The first day I came back, I was like, where else Pops? And, oh, yeah, that's right, he retired on Friday. It's like, cool. But, not many people can say, too, that they got to spend a lot of time. I worked in a couple other jobs with my dad. And like I said, we went to work every day for 7 years together. We had a good time. There were days where we were going to kill each other. But, he could watch me and I could watch him. And still the cockiness, I kept telling him once in a while, when are you going to pass the torch, old man? He's like, I'm taking it with me to my grave. I'm like, good enough, So, and that's how I wound up where, getting to the point where I was, I wanted to be the CWI, because like I said, I didn't feel like I had anywhere else to go. I needed that new challenge. I'm one of those guys who like to chase the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
I embrace it. I'm not afraid to run from it. Sure, will I fail? Yeah, okay with that. It's part of life, but I'm going to go back and I'm going to keep going. I don't know how to quit. And then school, I was, I was just like my friend Josh Padlick. He was one of the instructors out where I am, and their welding program was starting to explode twofold. And he put up a thing for a teacher, and I sent him a message and I says, "This is really legit." And he's like, why don't you apply for it? And I'm like, I did. And I went in, and I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I was like, I'm sitting in front of a panel of educators, and they're like, "You look nervous." I'm like, I'm shitting egg rolls right now. There's no question about it. I'm like, they're like, just relax. So we had a nice conversation, and they kind of picked me, and then they called me back or I left like 2 hours later, and they're like, "We need you to put a lesson together." I'm like, "You want me to do what?" And they're like, we need a lesson. And I'm like, they're like, "Just do GMA." And I says, "All right, guess Lark Welding it is." And I just kind of put together a 20-minute spiel, like, okay, this is where I did one for like if you were a beginning welder and had no idea if you were intermediate or you were a little more advanced. And it wound up being like 30 or 40 minutes longer than what they wanted, but they let me go through the whole deal, and they offered me the job. And that was right when like COVID kind of like was in full swing. So like the kids up here, they weren't in school for a while. And then when they did come back, they came in for like, 2 days this week, 3 days the next week. So like I just spent the first school year with Josh, kind of getting to know the ropes and, what they expected. what their curriculum was like, what I could do, what I couldn't do. And, he was very good about showing me those ropes. And then one day it turned out to be, here you go. You can have the junior class. And I'm like, oh man, I don't know if I'm ready for this. And that's like when we first kind of met, was like during that whole COVID deal, because I had reached out to you and I says, look, I mean, I said, the kids dig your podcast. I'm like, let's do a Zoom. And you were like, yeah. And, we've been talking ever since.
Yeah, I think I've chatted with a couple of different of your students. The most recent one was, tell me about that Spark program, because that seems like it's a really cool. It's like a summer program for middle school kids, right?
Yeah. So the Center for Workforce Development up here at our school had wanted to do a program this summer to show more like a career exploration kind of. So they approached me about, well, would you be willing to run like a Spark camp for the week? And I says, all right, well, what are you thinking? And they're like, well, we'll kind of leave that up to you. And I'm like, do you want these kids welding? What do you want them just to see different career paths they can do? They're like, whatever you want to do. So, my first week was kind of like we had that like crawl before you walk kind of deal. But after that, we settled in, and like each day we come in and we check out like a different career path. Like, we showed them a video with like Newport News Shipbuilding on how they built the aircraft carriers. And how necessarily you don't have to be involved in welding, but you could be like an electrician or an engineer or a pipe fitter, something to show them, look, you can be a part of something cool. But this is what this area is detailing this week. So, we do something like that every day. We watched about the build of the Appomattox. I don't know if you've ever watched that video of ExxonMobil with the Appomattox. It's a 3-part video all the way. That thing sits out in the Gulf of Mexico, about 140 miles out. And they got a 3-part series on it on YouTube where, they take you through the build, the problems they had, how the hell they got it over there to the point of what it took to hook them up to, doing the extraction of oil. And these kids got like a kick out of it. We watched the not Weld Labs video. We watched the video with Charlie and Nate when they were doing the hyperfill.
Mm-hmm.
And then the kids go out in the shop and they're like, oh my God, you have that. I'm like, yep. Can we do this? I'm like, I don't think you're quite there yet. I'm like, but you ever get back here? I'm like, someday you can. So we would just like, they learned about like taking apart a welding machine, like, okay, here's your contact tip, your nozzle, these are your insides, these are your drive rolls, these are your tensioners. This is how you feed the wire. This is what'll happen if you don't, your tension is too much. You can get a bird's nest, or it's not enough, or if you got too much crap on your tip. And, and I says, let's just turn the machines on. And I said, let's go. And like these kids just ate it right up. And now we've gotten a lot of feedback, and a lot of the parents want to know what's next for these kids, because there's really nothing set in stone for something like this, because up here you don't get into these kind of programs till you're a junior, senior. So now these parents are starting to ask, what can we do to promote this now? Because I think I had 3 full classes. I had 15 spots and I had 45 kids. And out of them 45 kids, I think I got 38 parents asking for more.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm sure when school gets back into session, and we will talk a little bit more about what's going to happen, what's next if we want to do something. But like, I'll tell you what, from what I saw coming out of there, there were some kids there that got some real talent, did some cool stuff. I mean, for in a week, they actually could do a fillet weld.
Yeah.
And I broke one in front of them, and the kid had full penetration for 3 inches. I gave him a 4-inch coupon. We cut a 1/2 inch off, and I bent that thing right over and ripped it apart, and it was full penetration from one end to the other.
Very
and I looked
cool.
at that kid. He goes, is this bad? I'm like, you should be proud of this.
Is it bad? It broke. No, you should be proud. There's penetration all the way into the root.
Yeah, he was like, he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, can I take it home? I'm like, knock yourself out. I mean, they started doing like designs. They were doing mom and dads. They were writing their names. They were drawing. I had one kid do a Buffalo Bills logo. He drew it out and he followed his lines, and he had a blast. And the parents loved it. The kids loved it. And I got a lot of knuckles and thank you. And I got a lot of breakfast sandwiches the last day I was there too. And I think I owe you that great thanks, because guy who's on a diet shouldn't have to deal with about 12 breakfast sandwiches either.
I've never seen that happen though, but that's one thing I always say is like when you go into a new shop, you find that old crotchety dude in the back corner and like you bring him a coffee and a breakfast sandwich and you make friends with them because they're going to make your life a lot easier. They're going to bestow a lot of information that they've, worked 30, 40 years to get. And I gave that same information to your class and I get a text the next morning. You're like, hey, thanks for that comment. I walked in this morning. I got like 14 breakfast sandwiches sitting on my desk.
I didn't even think about it because where my classroom is to my shop, like I got zero like cell phone, so, and I didn't even think, so I was like, oh my God, what's happening? And I'm like, I got breakfast sandwiches coming out the wazoo. And I didn't even think about it. So I'm like, here guys, just dig in and enjoy. I'm like, I appreciate it. I'm like, but it's not necessary. But I'm like, oh my God, I go to listen. And
that was the cool thing for a group of middle schoolers that were just sampling welding. They had a lot of great questions during that Zoom meeting. Like, I think we scheduled it for 15, 20 minutes. I think we went on talking for about 45.
Yeah.
And it was the day before, because they were so engaged.
Yeah. Like the day before, I had prepped them too for your arrival on Zoom. I says, look, let's look. I go, let's listen to one of his podcasts in the shop. So we listened to a podcast and then they start coming out with questions. I says, look, I know you guys are going to get timid to ask questions. I said, so let's write them on the board. And they did it, and I was like really surprised at it too, because I didn't think we were going to be as long as we were. And I was like, wow, this is pretty sick. And they were just happy. They were ecstatic. Like that was all they talked about for the rest of the days. Man, that Jason, he's cool as hell. My nephew, one of my cousin's kids were actually in my class. And he was like, man, he goes, how do you meet these guys? I'm like, someday. I go, you just stumble upon things. And they go, what happens? I go, like, I told them, I go, me and you have never met in person.
Right.
I says, it's going to happen sooner or later. I says, but I go, not always do you need to be in person to become good friends. I says, and, we can talk about things. I said, I can reach out to him and be like, hey, man, how's it going? He'll be like, shit's nuts. And I'm like, I hear you. And I don't talk to him again for a few more weeks. And then, hey, Jay, you want to hook me up with a Zoom? And yeah, I got time. And I says, that's what this industry is about. I says, I explain to these guys, we're a small group. I'm like, but we're nerds. Mm-hmm. I'm like, this is what we do. I mean, here it is. We're on a Sunday afternoon and it's 20 to 6 and you and me are nerding out just talking about, well, that's what we do. We don't care. We don't see a problem with it. This is what we do.
Yeah.
And they were like, that's cool. And like I said, now I got to deal with the issue of we want more and I want to give these kids more. Now I just got to figure out what I can do with them. And I tell you the truth, since I jumped in and started teaching, I was really on the fence over it at first. I'm not going to lie. Like I was like, maybe this isn't for me, but it was getting that say, I don't like to fail deal. And I mean, I do got a really good support group when it comes to that school. I got a girl, Teresa Cortez. She's like my instructional specialist. She works with me. She's like really good at keeping me level headed, especially when I have that fuck it moment and I'm done. And I got another guy from Tim Slocum from Heavy Construction, our construction program. He's always like, hey, what up? He's a good dude. He kind of like keeps me even keeled. And, and the kids I got now, like I said, it's that whole everybody's kids are the best. And they are. I love my kids. My seniors were great. I love my juniors. I don't want to single, one class out over the other, but my juniors this year really like gave me it all. They were in during, like I said, the summer deal. They came in and helped out. I told these guys, and they've been waiting for this. This. They even gave you grief. And I says, it'll happen someday. I'm like, you just got to be patient. And, these kids come in and I can just ask them to do anything, whether I just ask them to grind a table, sweep the floor. They don't give me any grief. And then I'm like, it's time to get down. They get down and do you need us to stay late, Mr. Prince? You want to stay late? All right. Now we might be on a school break. Hey, we come in this week. And, they go above and beyond what they're supposed to. So I feel like I need to go above and beyond what I'm supposed to do as a reward for them. They, like I said, I got 20 of them this year that are going to be seniors. And probably by week 20, I'm not even going to have a class. They're all going to go to work somewhere. And the only times I'll see them is on Fridays when they're scheduled to come in, or if I just stop in at a shop to check on them to see how they're doing. I got a girl, Mika, who's very, very good. Isaac is super good. Caitlin is amazing. I mean, I could sit here and rail off all 20 names. Trevor, kid wants to be in NASCAR. This kid is a phenomenal TIG welder for being in his first year. He puts in extra time. Jonathan's another great TIG welder. I got a really good pulse guy in Noah. I got another kid, Ryan, who wants to go in the Navy. He's kind of like my best kept secret, so I like Rogue, and there's so many of them. Just, you see them. And like I said, they just give me everything they got more. And I can't ask for anything more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're now interested now they want to go compete. Like this year we've got our sights on to go down to KWI, I've never been down there. And now that we can travel and go outside of the state, this year, that's their goal. They want to go to KWI.
You got to do KWI. That's it. That's an awesome event. So I tried 2 years ago. I was supposed to go. I wasn't able to make it, but I went last year, and I'm planning on going back again this year, or I guess next year, 2023, because I believe they do it in April. But yeah, it was an amazing competition. And, there's a lot of people that turn out for that. And then the prizes are freaking amazing. I know my buddy Kyle Linko he's up from in Pennsylvania. He came out to it. So people, I mean, they're coming from all over the U.S. to compete at the Kentucky Welding Institute, and it's all for high school age students.
Yeah. They've got their sights set on this, and I want to make it happen. And I'm like, I don't care how we make it happen. I don't care if I got to pay for it out of my pocket. You guys show me that what you did last year, you repeat this year. And I says, I don't care if we're taking a bus of 20 down there or we're taking a van of 7. I'm like, you guys want to go? We'll go.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've done a lot of cool stuff with them. Nate and Rush were in for Weld Labs, and they spent 4 days. And I mean, I had a continuing adult ed too, and they stayed for that. And my kids were there till like 5:30, 6 o'clock, and then adult ed was coming in, and then I had another one of my students, Marissa, come in, who's, I tell you what, if you could see her, dude, she is 4 foot of just piss and vinegar. I mean, this girl has no fear, and she is going to be somebody special when this is all done. Give her about 10 more years to develop herself, and this girl's going to be special. And she come in, and I be teaching my night classes. She come in just because she want to learn more. She's like, I'll help you, whatever you need, Mr. Prince. Whatever you need, Mr. Prince. And I'm like, those are my kids. Whatever you need, we got you. All right, what do you need from me? I got you. That's the favor.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break. This segment of the Arc Junkies podcast is brought to you by Everlast Welders. We all know you need a machine to fabricate, but you also need a plasma cutter to cut the parts out. Check out the Hatchet 60 on sale right now for just $5.99 at everlastwelders.com. And don't forget to use Arc Junkies in the comment section at checkout. Get that free Nova foot pedal and TIG torch upgrade when you buy any machine that comes with a stock foot pedal. We're also brought to you by O2 Armor, the concealed nasal filtration system. O2 Armor is great for when wearing a dust mask is impractical or impossible due to facial hair. These filters block out particulate down to 2.5 microns, which blocks out pollen, mold, pollution, pet dander, grinding dust, viruses, and more. Head on over to O2 Armor and save 10% when you use Arc Junkies 10 in the discount box at checkout. Breathe it or block it with O2 Armor. We're also brought to you by Stronghand Tools, my favorite manufacturer of fabrication tools and tables. Stronghand is constantly releasing new tools to make your life as a fabricator so much easier while helping you improve speed and accuracy on your builds. Our friends over at Stronghand Tool just put together some fantastic new promo kits. These kits include some of the most useful tools you'll find in the shop, and they're all 10% off with free shipping. Check them out today at stronghandtools.com/promo. Now let's get back into the show. No, that's awesome, man. And I love to see programs like that because that's what our industry, that's what our trade needs. Because there's too many welding instructors out there that they're either there for the paycheck or the summers off, or they were, they're just there in a pinch because they met the bare minimum requirements. They're not really, don't have a welding background or any formal welding education, and they're just in there. Oh, here's how you run a 6013, and here's how you do short circuit MIG, and there you go. Send them off in industry, and that's all those kids know. But there's instructors out there, especially at a high school level. You're teaching these kids advanced processes. You're teaching them troubleshooting. You're teaching them the critical thinking, diving deep into newer processes. Like you said, you've got hyperfill, you're using pulse spray transfer, you're doing different pulse welding for gas tungsten arc welding applications, different alloys. Like this is what our industry needs, is that fundamental, like the basics of welding that so many that are in industry today, they don't understand it. And I think that's how we start to move that needle in the right direction, because like right now, as everybody knows, there's a huge welder shortage, whether
Mhm.
it's a skills gap or a wage gap or a combination of both. There's a massive welder shortage. So the people that are coming into industry, like I spoke with Scott Wachowski a couple weeks back, like we don't just need somebody that can weld. We need somebody that can weld really well and understand what exactly they're doing, because, all this stuff has to be repaired or installed or fabricated. And a lot of the stuff that we have to do, it's like critical components, critical parts. So you can't just take any geek off the street that knows how to MIG weld a little bit and put them on these parts. That's why a lot of companies are switching to automation, or they're bringing people in from other countries to perform this work, because we don't have a talented enough workforce to be able to do this. Because we're
Right.
losing people to they're aging out in retirement. I mean, I
Yeah.
can't remember what the exact numbers are per day, but it's like 10,000 people are retiring from this industry, not necessarily welders, but like the welding industry. So engineers, CWIs, welders, like 10,000 people a day are retiring. We have to figure out a better way to not just put out a welder, put out a well-rounded, well-educated, highly skilled welder out of, like a high school program, or, like not like a college program. I mean, you really don't need a degree for welding, but put somebody out of like a career in tech ed or something like that. You need to put out a highly skilled welder that really understands what the hell is going on when they get there and they drop their hood and they pull that trigger or they strike that arc.
Yeah. Like one of my kids, Tyler, Chick, like he's probably again another one of those best kept secrets. I mean, he come in and he likes to do a lot with like heavy construction. I'm like, well, okay, Tyler. I'm like, let's take your let's take your skill set ability then. If this is the way you want to go, I'm all for pushing you in the direction you want to be. So he does a lot of heavier stuff. I have another kid, Owen, who wants to be an under. He's got it in his head because he likes this. He wants to be an underwater welder. Well, I can't fill up a kiddie pool by chance, you know what I'm saying, to teach you how to do that. But I can give you the right tools to get there, because I told him you're going to have to go through more school. And if you apply yourself like you apply it in here, you can succeed in whatever you do. And, it's funny, like, I don't expect a lot of like some of the things that happen. Like, one of my kids sent me that letter. I think I sent it to you. And I
Hmm.
was like, it was like the first one I ever got. And then I get a text message from another one. It's been a year. Thanks for helping me. I don't really feel like I did any of that, and I'm humble. I don't want that pat on the back. I was the generation that replaced my father. These guys are going to be the generation that replaces me. So, those guys passed, like my dad and Gene and all those guys passed their knowledge down to me, Rich. Like I said, I can't thank all those guys enough on what it means. And Charlie, Charlie's 12 years younger than I am. I listen to Charlie like it's religion. He speaks, I listen. That guy
Smart
is
move.
just one of the
Smart
most
move.
amazing people that I've had. He'll call me up, hey, how's it going? What's new? Blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, hey, I got this article. Well, I'm going to go read it. Or, maybe you should try this. And I do this and it works. Ryan Eubanks, never met Ryan. Had 2 conversations with Ryan prior to me starting my own deal. And everything Ryan said made sense.
Hmm.
He's like, treat these kids like you want to be treated. Life lessons. When they screw up, talk about it. Don't make it a bigger deal than what it has to be. And everything Ryan has said has been spot on. And
I love that,
that's
dude.
the stuff that works. It's guys like Ryan. Like, you know, Ryan's not where he is for, Ryan's doing it. Ryan's improved it. This way it works. I want a program like Ryan's. I want to be able to go to a couple of companies and get work in and, okay, guys, look, this is a legit functioning part. You got to get certified for it. We're going to get you certified. But I want you to be able to know this is what it's going to take to build this part. And then you're going to have, somebody inspect it, and then you're going to find out whether it passes or fails. And, I think a lot of that, if it could get brought back into schools rather than test coupons all day in in a booth, that's where it is, because these kids are going to have more of an idea. The key I tell these guys is I want to get them thinking. Like I have pictures of stuff that they want built. Screw that. Look, here, you're in a group, you're a team, you're a team, you're a team. Here's a wad of steel. I want you to design something. I want you to draw it out. I want you to fabricate. I want you to execute it. Here's your problem. Let's fix it. This is how we're going to get around it. Maybe we got to do something different. And these guys do that.
Mm-hmm.
And, like I said, I got them all over it. A lot of them like to watch dabs. I got a whole ton of mirrored stainless sitting in my shop now, and these guys are making all kinds of logos for their favorite teams and stuff like that. I got one that likes to just build crazy exotic. Andrew, he likes to build these fire pits. And we built this big wedge fire pit he saw. He like, all right, man, that's cool. It's yours. I got another kid, Brody. He's into doing all kinds of weird stuff. Yeah, do it, man. And they built some pretty cool stuff. Mika took a freaking car rim and made this elaborate fire pit, and she drew it all out. She designed it top to bottom. All right, Prince, I need some help here. What do I got to do? All right. And she was so proud of that. I got pictures of it. She's like, look at this thing glow. And she, that's what this industry needs. They need these kids to be thinking. Yeah, we can teach them to weld, but they also need to have a brain.
Yep. And I think project-based learning helps out tremendously. Like, I mean, yeah, it's great that you can go in there and weld on coupons and stuff like that. You've got to build up the fundamentals, the muscle memory, and all that stuff. But it's not until you throw a set of prints or you throw a pile of material and, a finished object and say, hey, I need you guys to build one more of these. Or here's a picture of something. I don't have any prints. This is what we need to do. We have to build this, and have them say, do a material takeoff. Okay, now that we figured out how much material we're gonna need, what's it gonna cost? Okay, so here's the number to my steel supplier, and I do this with my students. Here's the number to my steel supplier. You're gonna call this lady up. You're gonna ask for Heidi. Shout out to Heidi. She's awesome. You're gonna call up Heidi, and you're gonna say, hey, here's the list of material I need. Do me a favor and send the quote over to Mr. Becker. And she's got my email on file. We get the quote and say, okay, here's how much it's going to cost. Let's get a couple more bids. Figure out, because we got to do some competitive bidding here. We're with the school.
Yeah, we got to do the same.
Yeah, are we getting the best price on material? This is stuff that they're going to have to do when they get out in industry. If they're in charge of a project, they've got to order the material. Make sure you're not getting ripped off by one company or another. So do some competitive bidding. Okay, what type of consumables are we going to need? Okay, we're going to use gas metal arc welding. Which process? Okay, you guys want to use spray and pulse spray? Cool. That 75-25 bottle we got out back, that's not going to work. We need 85-15. So let's price out a couple bottles of that. Contact tips, drive rolls. Let's make sure we have everything we need for this. We're going to have to do some cutting. Okay, check on the bandsaw blades. Check on the horizontal saw. Make sure we got blades for that. Like, they have to go through the whole process, and then once they get it, now we got to develop a cut list. Okay, part 1, part 2, part 3. This is going to be a base plate. Here's the dimensions. This is going to be square tubing. It's got to be cut at an angle 37.5 inches away from point A. Like, figure all that stuff out. Let's draw it out as we're going. Let's put some welding symbols on there. Boom. Now we got a set of blueprints to work off of. While we're waiting on that material to come in, now we've got the blueprints. We got a cut list. As soon as that material comes in, we can start cutting it, fitting it, and fabricating it, and then we can do all the welding. And it's really cool because that invokes, teamwork. It invokes, social building skills, critical thinking. It reinforces the importance of learning how to read a tape measure, because a lot of them shy away from that. So I mean, like, all this stuff that they're going to need out in industry, it's so beneficial to do project-based learning.
Right. And, and I think that's like I said, that's a direction that needs to be explored more. I mean, in some areas it's more prevalent, some it's not. Up here, it's not really that prevalent. I want to be one of those ones that bring it in. I'm not looking for a handout from the company. You want to give me material to practice on for these kids? Fine, great. But, I'm not looking for money to be donated to my program. I want to make sure these kids get the absolute best experience as possible. I don't have the answer for everything either, but, part of my job is to go find it.
Mm-hmm.
And the goals that I set for myself, I expect to accomplish just as much as the goals these kids want. And if we want the same goals, then we work together at it to get them. And that's ultimately where I want to be in the end. So if I decide that, down the road, I want to move on, I feel good about what I've left behind and what's going to be able to accomplish, because I don't want to necessarily say I get bored, but I'm always looking for something new to challenge, whether it be me, the kids, or whatever, you know, I can do. Like, I'm just now starting to reach out and do my level 3s for ASNT. And that's going to be my new thing amongst teaching these kids. But, you know, again, something new, and you can never stop learning.
Yeah.
And that's one of the few things that, I've learned. Everybody's got something to teach. Everybody's got a strength, a niche, and a weakness. You find your strength, you find your niche, and you work on your weaknesses. And that's what's going to make you stronger. I tell these guys, a lot of guys like pipeliners, you can't tell them. They're phenomenal. They're good at what they do, but then you'll get that guy in the shop who's, oh, I'm the best there is, best there was, and best there ever will be. Now, well, you know what? If you can go in there and you show that you have more skill and ability than them, if that time gets slow, and you're the one you're the one they're going to want to keep, because you're not just a one-trick pony, is what I see it as.
Mm-hmm.
I just want these kids to be able to go in and stand on their own and not be afraid. You're going to have a bad day, yeah, but you're going to, all of us go through it, but the next day is going to be better. And you know that you can hold your own and you have confidence. And that's what I'm trying to instill in my group of kids. And a lot of that came through too with Nate and Rush. Like, when they were there, like, I don't know how much Welding and Philip breaks me and Nate did, but we destroyed a whole entire vice while he was here. I mean, we were just beating the hell out of him. He goes, okay, Prince, he goes, lay down a bead. And I lay down a bead, and he goes to bend it. He goes, it didn't break. I'm like, I'm sorry. He goes, do another one. You go, I lay down the bead. It doesn't break. He goes, I'll just do it myself. And I'm like, I don't know what else I have to do. I mean, you just want me to put the wire on like a half an inch a second? Here, I'll do what I have to. I mean, and then Rush has got a whole group over. He's TIG welding aluminum, having the time of his life. And, the last thing, I think the last day they were there, it really hit my kids, because the ones that stayed after, we did a weld competition with them. And I looked at these guys and I'm like, well, let's do something with them they haven't done a lot of. So it was carbon to stainless. And these guys were like, oh, we haven't, how does this work? And they did it, and we had a blast. I mean, gave a couple helmets away and some jackets and gloves. And, I think to see that happen with those kids, I mean, I got pictures of Nate and Rush with these kids, and they were ecstatic. If there's one thing that I seriously, and I'm going to plug Nate Rush for this, because it's not because we're friends, it's because what I got to stand back and see is how these kids reacted to them. And that was amazing. I mean, they brought like a side of these kids out. So when they left for like the next 3 weeks, I could just stand back and you could see the things that they had brought to these kids and how different ways to apply it. They were using it. And this isn't something that you would see out of a 16 or 17-year-old kid. They were using it. And I was like, I stood back, and it was like a proud moment. I called Rush one day on the phone, and he pulled over. He was driving. And my kids are like, yo, Rush, how's it going? He's like, what's up, guys? I mean, they were having, he took like 20 minutes to sit in his car talking to him, and they were very appreciative of what he does.
Mm-hmm.
And so this year already, they've asked me, how do I plan on beating that? I says, I don't know if I can.
Yeah.
I says, either they're coming back, or what's it going to take to have Jason come in? I'm like, I'm like, God, I go, I can fly him up here. I go, I'll have to deal with the rest of that afterwards. I go, they want you next. And I'm like, this is going to be epic. And I'm like, but again, I says, sometimes I says, I can't change the world. I says, but if you guys show me this is what you're in for, I says, I can figure out maybe how to make it happen.
No, that'd be kind of cool. I've never been to New York.
Yeah, I mean, up here in Rochester, I mean, everybody thinks we're all from New York City. There's like nothing else that exists but New York City.
But you guys are like up in the country area, right?
No, so I'm in Rochester. I'm between Buffalo and Syracuse. I mean, I'm out towards the country a little bit. I'm probably 25 minutes outside of Rochester, but I mean, it's cool. I mean, I'd love to have everybody come up. Stephanie Hoffman's another one they'd love to have come up, and I haven't even connected with her. I'm going to have to at some point. I know she's been down here in the area, and I says, we can try these things. I says, maybe we take a trip up to her shop. I says, we got time. We got a whole year to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, when it comes to the effort, if they're giving it to me, I need to feel like I need to make these things happen to give back to them. I don't expect them to think that this is going to happen when they get out of school. But look, your reward is here because you rewarded me by giving me your best. When I don't have a grade below an 82 in a class, that says something.
Yeah.
They might not be the best test takers. They may have some kind of, learning disability, but you know what? They still give me my all. And when parents are telling you they only come to school because they want to come to your class and they fight through everything in school to get here, that means a little something.
Yeah. I mean, you're on your way. I mean, that's the same thing that Ryan Eubank deals with day to day. Is like the kids, they're really only showing up to school to go to welding class, and they're only maintaining their attendance and their grades in other classes so that they can, stay in welding class. It's like their sport, like same thing. If you want to be on the football team, okay, you got to have good academics, you got to have good attendance and stuff like that. I mean, his students see welding class the same way that, the football players see football, or the lacrosse, students, they see lacrosse. It's here's the
we had a demo day where we brought in 10th graders that are going to come in to the program, and we saw a real uptick this year. Like, I'm a real advocate for the women in welding. I think that's one of the greatest things. And like I tell my girls, and there's a couple of girls in the other class that I see too. I'm like, you guys will be way better than a lot of us because you pay attention to detail. And I'm like, your mentality for that is spot on, and they believe it. And I've seen it with Mika, I've seen it with Marissa, I've seen it with Caitlin, I've seen it with Angelina, and they really put that extra effort in, and those are the ones too that I really will help more too because I want to see them succeed. And like I said, I'm very humble for the opportunity I've got with these kids, and I don't care what kind of job offer I could have beyond this at this point in time. These kids mean more to me, and I probably wouldn't take it just because I feel like this particular group is something I have to see through.
Mm-hmm. And to think, come day 2 when you first started, you didn't think you'd be able to do it.
Day 2, I was ready to get in my truck and go home.
Yep.
No, here, because like I said, they were Zooming a lot. You can only teach so much welding via Zoom.
Yeah.
That's especially to a kid especially to a kid who hasn't had any. So, I mean, it's tough. But, they've persevered and pushed through. And this year, I'm hoping we got big things out of them. I mean, right now, I'm actually, amongst doing all the other stuff I'm doing, company I'm doing work for, I've got one of my kids I'm training. He's like, I just can't seem to get away from you. I'm like, nope, not really. Like, you're screwed, dude. And this guy's had the opportunity to work with my dad as well. He's like, you princes. He goes, I'm telling you. But, they're coming along and they're doing well. So I'm happy with that. I can't ask for anything more.
Yeah. It's got that effect. It kind of pulls you in. Like, the more the students give, the more you want to give back to them. And you're going to find that. You're going to have a lot of students that, they go the extra mile. They come in early. They stay late. They like the same thing I tell people all the time. Come in early, stay late, burn every piece of rod and wire you can. And you're going to go far.
Get more.
Yeah, and then ask questions. So like that, I mean, that was the coolest thing. The first year that I taught, and I think that's one of the things that challenged me to be a better instructor. I had this one kid, Esteban Velarde, and every night he would go home and he would watch YouTube videos and he would do Google searches and he'd research things and he'd come back in the next day. He's like, Mr. Becker, what do you think about this? Or what do you know about this? And I'd be 100% honest with him. Like, oh, here's, this, that. And I'd lay everything out for him. He's like, okay, cool. That's the information I found out last night. I just wanted to make sure that you knew. And I was like, okay. But then there were times that I didn't know. I was like, man, that's new to me. I've never heard of that. I'm going to have to do some more research. And he'd give me links. We would share information. We would kind of like weld nerd out together.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but it's really cool because it made me go home every night and like, what's he going to ask me tomorrow? Let me go home and do some research. Let me, counteract some of his questions with some of the stuff that, is new to me. Or, here's, I can take him a little bit further in this process because now I know this much more information. And it just made me strive to be a better educator, better mentor, better teacher. And, I kind of stuck with that as I got through education because I was in the same boat, man. Like day 1, I was like, screw this, man. I'm getting back into ironwork. Day 2, I was like, yep, I'm going to have to go get my tools and, call up the boss man. But like by the end of the week, I was like, this is where I belong. This is actually pretty cool to have this type of impact. when you see them applying everything that you've been teaching them, the past couple of days, and they're all in, and they're doing, going above and beyond to impress you, and you're like, okay, yeah, this is going to work out. And then every group of class that you get, it's like you make every class better than your last. Like
Yeah.
I learned what went right, what went wrong in my previous class, and I try to fix that in my next class going forward.
Well, that was like my one student, Evan. He was like, he goes, at first, when he sent me that letter, he's like, at first I thought you hated me because you wouldn't tell me anything good about my welds. He goes, you'd always be pointing this out or this out. I mean, I never told him that it was shitty or it sucked.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, we've got cold lap and lack of fusion. Like, this is what we got to do. And then he would go back and he'd make the corrections. And then, he said it. I'm just trying to get you, I was trying to get him to make the adjustments to make a good sound quality weld. And when he started doing it, I was happy. Yeah, everything looks good. I'm happy.
Mm-hmm.
My buddy Lee said the same thing when I got into this. He goes, this was your niche. And, I still refuse to believe it. I mean, I have my days that I'm just kind of like, fuck it. But I just, I have them days where these guys take the shittiest day I've had and they make it go away. And then it goes back to shitty after they go away. But, it's just been right. And like I said, with all of them, I can't thank them enough. Like, when people ask how many kids I got and I say 38, they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, because these guys are my kids. As far as I'm concerned, too, I don't have just but my three. I got one that's graduated in the Navy, another one. I got my daughter. I mean, and then I got 35 to 40 other kids on any given day.
Mm-hmm.
They're all my kids, and I treat them like they're my kids. You screw up, I yell at you. The only thing I can't do is ground you and punish you, but I'm going to tell you, look, you were dumb.
Oh, there's ways to punish kids in your class. Go
Oh yeah,
pull all the aluminum out of the scrap metal bin.
Yeah, where there's that tables, man. They got a lot of weld spatter on them. No, they don't. It goes spatter up that table. It does now.
Yeah.
And these kids are like, yeah, let's get it on. And I'm like, but a lot of life lessons, and that was one of the things that Ryan spoke to me about too. And like I said, a 5-minute brief phone conversation is like, a lot of this has to be about life lessons, and I didn't really understand it at first, but then like there it was, and it just like took off. And, I hate the fact that my kids got to call me Mr. Prince too. Look, just call me Prince. I'm good with that, but hey, it's got to be that way. And we do it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be that Mr. Man. I'm just a guy like you who's got some welding background, who can teach you how to do things and do them right. That's all I want, man, to go home and know that you guys are good. And, like I said, if it wasn't, you take this all back circle, if it wasn't for a lot of the stuff I got to watch over the years from my father, I wouldn't be doing this right now. I wouldn't be talking with you right now. I wouldn't be welding. To tell you the truth, I'd probably be in some kind of shit right now. And it brought me back twofold.
Mm-hmm.
I work hard for what I've got. I mean, I got a great house. I got a nice family. Everybody treats me well. You can't ask for anything more than that, and I give back to as much as I get.
Yeah. That's the cool thing is the people in the industry that want to give back, that want to leave things better than they found it.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, welding saved me from this, that, and the other thing, or, welding's done so much for me. I want to give back to the next generation and help them and avoid some of the same pitfalls that I was going to make and see where welding could take them.
Yeah. And, without, the guidance that I've gotten along the way, I can't guarantee still. Yeah, maybe I'm just a welder, but, if I didn't have people pushing me like I got to push others, I wouldn't be where I am now, and I'm still moving.
Yeah.
And I don't plan on giving up. I mean, I got breath in this body. I'm still gonna charge forward. I'm looking at this year. Like, I've got a couple of things. Like, I reached out to Kyle and I said, until he became Mr. Administrative now,
yeah.
I says, I'd like to do a collaboration with your school, where maybe you bring some of your students up here for a couple of days. I bring some of mine down there, let them see some different stuff and, work with your kids. And my kids were, Joe Bellotto up in New Hampshire. He, Nate Rush visited his school before he came, before they came down to mine. And I got talking with him and I said, look, you're only 6 hours away. I said, I'd love to put some guys on, let's get together, come on down. So, we're going to start looking into that stuff and see if we can make it happen. Because like I said, there's something Joe's got to teach that I haven't thought of. And I'm sure there's something that I can do with his students.
I got to get you in contact with Joe Clark, because he runs a welding program for the longest time. Like, because I had met you and Joe Clark on social media at the same time. He's at the
other end of the state.
Yeah, but I met you guys at the same time, and I kept getting you both mixed up. But he runs a program on an island, on Governor's Island. So you actually have to take a ferry to get to his school.
Yeah, he's down by New York City.
Yeah, you got to link up and check that out, because he's got like a whole maritime welding situation going on over there. So some of your students might be interested in doing that.
Oh yeah, I mean, like the first day these kids walked in, you've got, I sat them down. Look, where do you want to take this? You find out who really wants to be a career out of this, who are unsure on the fence, and you got those kids that just want to be there because they can play with fire.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've seen anything from underwater to pipeline to NASCAR. So, I mean, the opportunities are there. There's some of these guys that can do these things, and I'd love to get these kids in touch with them this year. And look, here, this is reality. And take charge, take it by the horns, and go.
Mm-hmm.
So that's this year's goal. And we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and it's still pretty early in the school year. You guys, you've already started, right?
Nope, we don't start till September 7th.
Oh, damn. Oh, you guys get out of school late too.
That's why, it's not easy for me to come down to the educators' workshops because I'm in school. If Ryan can just hold it 2 weeks later next year, I will be there. I swear to God. I can't get out to FabTech, and I'd love to come down to FabTech and hang with you guys. Actually, I might just have to. You know what I mean?
There you
my
go.
boss don't hear that, but so I can come down to FabTech.
I might catch COVID for 2 weeks and have to go down to FabTech for a week.
Yeah, the weather here is great, but I like to get into that stuff. Your crew collaborative, we just started talking with them. We had a big Zoom with them guys. You couldn't be a part of it that day, but they loved it. They had the oil lady, they loved it. I believe she sent stickers, and we got to talk with Kyle and a few other guys, and I really like to get that more involved in our school with our heavy construction program. The teacher Jim Slocum that I got next in the room next to me, he's been very interested in something like that, and we've been wanting to do that. Whether it's that, guys, I mean, what can we do? How do we join? I mean, I've had a couple of dead ends with it, but I mean, it's just the way the email set up. But since you guys have retooled it, it's been better.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to get in.
There's been a lot of growing pains with it.
Yeah, I mean, I told Nate Rush, with the Weld Labs, I can't promote that enough because, like I said, in 4 days of standing back watching them with my kids, that's something that most schools should look at. I don't care if it's a college program, it's a high school program, a private program. It was amazing.
Yeah, Weld Labs it's a great program. I'm so glad that they were able to link up with Lincoln Electric and get sponsored to be able to do that program and hit up all these different schools. I think they've got 2 or 3 more on the list this year, which is, I mean, that's just awesome to be able to have access to those two and all that knowledge and information that they bring to the table.
Well, they didn't do any video at my school this year because the school was kind of like, well, and I'm like, okay, no, that's fine. And, they were actually good with it. But, that thing is just, from like I said, just watching 4 days of it was amazing. And I don't know what happened down at your place either, but I'm pretty sure it did not go unnoticed with them kids. And you will start to see the results of it.
Oh, yeah. They had groups going back and forth between Nate and Rush the whole time. So they did 2 days with my day class, and then they did 2 days with my night class, or 2 evenings with my night class, because we have day and night programs. So I was like, let's split it up 50-50, do Monday, Tuesday with the daytime students, and then Wednesday, Thursday with the nighttime students. And it worked out great. I was trying to get the most out of Rush and Nate while they were there, that, both programs could benefit.
Yeah. When they came in, like I said, they stayed the last night they were there. They stayed with my CWD course. And then we were just doing, it's an intro to welding. It just kind of gives them the basics, shows them all the processes. And like Rush was like, wow, this is crazy. And Nate's like, this is nuts. And then a couple of them wanted to see Rush TIG, and then they wanted, and Rush was like, wow, when you don't have that experience, he's like, this is kind of interesting. And I'm like, yep.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this makes it a lot of fun. And, you got the hobbyists, or you got the guys that are coming in and trying to retool because they were an accountant. They no longer have a job and the state paid for their training, or, I mean, I got a lot of things going on with all of that. And like I said, for the end of the day, I take a selfie with each group I got. This way I got something to remember. My number's up on the corner. You need me for something, reach out and be like, hey, this is what I need. And, I'm usually really good about helping anybody. And, I don't ever ask for that anything in return, because I won't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm humble. I told these guys I will never ask. You just tell me what you need and I got you.
That's the best way to do it, man. Work hard, stay humble.
Stay humble. And that's what I preach to my kids too. I don't care. You're going to find somebody who's always going to be better than you at something. I go, everybody out there has got a strength. I go, they can MIG weld. They can MIG weld better. We did a couple of in-house competitions with our heavy construction class. We had a kid walk in one day. Then I still remember this, and they go, we're looking for Mr. Prince. I'm like, well, what can I do for you? Never had seen this kid. And he goes, I hear you're the man to take out. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I want you. And I'm like, well, what do you want? He's like, I want to weld head to head with you. And I was like, cool. I'm like, you sure? I'm like, come on, get a helmet, practice for a couple of days, and then we'll throw down. We had another group of guys come in. And of course, he's a kid. I didn't want to be that guy. I'm like, I got him. He made the deal that if I lost, I would go clean their shop.
Mm-hmm.
I win, he comes and clean my shops. Well, we did a couple of welds, and he came in and he cleaned my shop. But I'll tell you what, the kid did very good. I broke his plate after he left, and he was there.
Mm-hmm.
And he did it at his home school. And, we teach some guys to do their stick welding, and they come in and they teach my guys how to run excavators. And, we kind of, to break that monotonous.
That's really cool. You guys got to look into, link up with them. Are you guys leasing your equipment, or do you own it?
No, they
own
own
equipment. Okay. Get with them and see if you can do some hard facing.
Yeah. So last year they did the other shop before I had mine did some stuff for them, but this year, we'll do it. And like I said, I get steel to come in, and they come and they take it off my trucks for me. And, we have a good old time. I mean, we do a lot. And like I said, I like the collaborations with them all. And, the people just come in, hey, you want to try it? I mean, we have our open house, and I've got kids that'll come in, and I'll put a jacket and a helmet on them, and I'll hold the gun in their hand, and I'll be like, I'll just pull the trigger. And man, they're like, this is cool. And I'm like, it could be cool. And, our kids are in there doing other stuff and, doing little projects. And, I'm trying to get it to the point where it's just sustainable, or we can grow it again. Now we need another. I mean, I was fortunate enough to have Charlie, and when I was doing all this, because I was looking at a lot of different equipment when I got my program. I was going to buy some Everlast and some Miller and some Lincoln, but I just didn't have the space. My room was only 2,000 square feet. And I just like, how do I maximize this? And then Charlie was like, come look at this machine. And I did. And I was like, all right, I'll take 17 of those. But I said, I got to have some Miller stuff. I got a Pipe Works, and we got a Pipe Fab, and, a Dynasty. I mean, we got a lot of nice stuff that I'm fortunate enough that a lot of schools don't get. So these kids are getting to learn and train on newer equipment.
Yeah.
I haven't really heard too much of them. The kids that I do have working now, that they've had a problem adjusting to the old school stuff, but they're getting that opportunity that a lot of kids don't.
Very cool.
So, like I said, overall, this has been a blast. I mean, I got to a point where I was welding and I was hating it. I'm sure you've been there, where you have that day.
Yeah, no, I've had a couple days like that. You ever weld decking? That'll make you want to find another job quick.
Yeah, and and it's just like, why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through this hell? But since I got into the teaching portion of it, I have just had a blast. I mean, there's those days where it ain't the kids that upset me, it's other things. but I have guys like Charlie I can vent to, and I can talk to you and Teresa and Jimmy, and that, and those little things easier. Or if I'm actually caught on something, but I'm here for the kids. I'm not here for the administration. I'm here for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm easily replaceable just like anybody else, but until you tell me that day's coming, I'm here for the kids. I make my money on the side, doing my inspections and doing stuff for other companies that allow me the opportunity to work with these guys. And like I said, I'm not the answer man. I'll never say I am, but I know that what I can teach these kids can go a long way. Just how they put their spin on it and their signature at the end, it makes the work.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, as long as I got guys like you and Ryan and Charlie and Nate and Rush, I don't have anything to worry about. It's like Nate told me the other day, welcome to the crew. And I'm like, what? I'm like, that's what we are, and that's what we are. I says, but
bunch of weld nerds doing weld nerd shit.
Weld nerds doing weld nerd shit. That's exactly what it is.
And it's great, man, because you've got like a whole network of people that you can rely on. Like, because one person can't know everything, and that's the thing that I've come to realize. Like, no matter how much I want to know and how much I want to teach people, I don't know everything, and I get a lot of off the wall questions and things like that. And it's a lot of times I'll tell them, hey, you know what? I don't know. I'm not familiar with this. Give me a couple minutes and I'll find out. And then I reach out to my network. I had a guy call me up the other day. He's like, "Hey man, I need this specific type of piece of material for this job that I'm doing, and here's the specs that I need: diameter, lengths, everything." And I was like, "Damn, that's some exotic alloys. Let me make a phone call." And within 24 hours, I had him in piece. We were able to track it down, get the right mill specs and everything, and I sent it back to him. So I was like, "Here you go." And that's because of the network. And if I didn't if I didn't have that network, I wouldn't know. I'd still be Googling shit, just like he was in that similar situation. But because, it's a big network, it's a community. And that's what people don't understand. You want to try to take the weight of the world on your shoulders. You can't do it. One person can't know everything. Like I'm pretty well versed in structural. You're really good with ASME. I've got a couple other guys that are really good with API. I can reach out to my network for all that piping stuff. I mean, granted, I still want to learn more about it on my own, but when I need the answers to these questions and I don't know where to look, or I don't know the information, I've got a network I can reach out to. Or, hey, I need a new lesson plan, or I need a new project to work on. Like I've got a network of welding instructors that I can reach out to and say, hey, here's what I'm going through right now. What do you guys have? Do you have any recommendations? Do you have anything that I can use? And we share that information.
Like I'm trying to eventually get my program into LEAPS. We're up for renewal, so I don't think it's going to happen this year. But eventually, I keep looking more at the LEAPS program, and the more I like it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the setup on that thing is phenomenal. It's just it's got to be gradually worked into the system.
I got you.
I can't be like, I'm used to, if I need this, I get it. I realize now that it's not that easy.
Mm-hmm.
So I gotta just wait and be like, okay, here it is. All right, so we'll look at it next year. Don't think that I didn't forget. So when next year arrives, I'm ready.
Bringing
I'm
that
looking
up,
to go. Yeah. And like I said, Lincoln has been very good to me. Jeremy Kreitzer, make sure I got everything I need. Charlie, I don't have any issues. Charlie just mentioned something not too long ago, and I don't know if you've heard about it yet, but he was talking about a jamboree in West Virginia next year.
Oh, for the Boy Scouts.
Yes.
I want to say Charlie's the one that wrote the curriculum for the Boy Scout merit badge for welding.
Yeah. So he had mentioned something like that. He's like, can I count on you to be there? And after everything that man's done for me, you say one and I'm there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I go up to his house. I mean, I'm going to go up here again in a few weeks to see him because it's been almost a year since I've seen him. And the last time we were there, I mean, we were outside at like 2:00 in the morning, and all you could see was the arc. We had the whole setup outside. His wife's like, "What's wrong with you guys?" And here I am. I got pants on, and I mean, we're out there doing open roots, and he's just, we're doing this. We're doing stick with a TIG pedal, and we had his son out. The son came back out earlier in the night, and I got a nice video of him and his son welding together, which was really cool. I kept that for him in case he ever wants it. But so he's done that kind of stuff for me. What can I do for you?
Yeah.
You need me? I'm on it. I'm there. You just got to say the word. And that's how I feel, like I said, with this group. If Nate and Rush ever need something from me, just tell me what you need. You need something, brother? I got you.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we roll. And that's how I see things.
Yeah. It's a good way to look at it.
Branch of an extended family. I mean, the support I got here, my mom, my dad, my wife's been very supportive. She sees some of the stuff that I go through, on a daily basis, just and nobody, whatever you need, okay. And then when they need something, I make sure I return the favor.
Yeah. How to do it, man.
Yeah.
I think that's about it. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you and, get in contact or reach out to you?
Well, I'm all over Facebook. I mean, I call that the old fart site now, but I'm definitely on Facebook. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I've recently ventured out to Snapchat and Instagram. I'm on there as the Prince of Welding. So if anybody has any questions,
I got to give you a follow now.
What's that?
I got to give you a follow now.
Oh, you're not following me?
I didn't know you were on. I didn't know where you were on Instagram. I knew you from I just found out you're on Facebook. We've always talked via LinkedIn and text message.
Yeah, I'm all over the place. It's just like I'm like Charlie. I like to be. I'm that small fish in the pond who's just nibbling.
I got you.
That's how I want to be. But yeah, Prince of Welding on Instagram, and like I said, I'm not really hard to find. You can drop me a message, and I will respond when I can. Usually I try to get back as soon as possible. So, like I said, with things going on right now, it's a little bit more crazy. I mean, tomorrow I have an interview with ARC magazine. So I'm going to do that in the morning. And then I got to set up a thing for the school for them to come into school and do some photography for it. And I just had another company reach out about wanting to do some merch.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, I'm a little timid on that still. I don't know if I'm going to go that route, but I kind of I like to be on the down low. So, I mean, for me to do this with you, I appreciate this. I know my kids a year ago put you on the spot and threatened you for crying out loud. But, I says in due time, I'm like, it's how you build relationships and how you build with your contacts. So.
Yeah, 100%.
And what I think you do too, Jason, is like second to none. I think the way you can reach out, the connections that you have and make, and the way you promote welding, in my eyes, is one of the things that I look forward to. And like I said, you're usually a homework assignment for my kids in the first year. Go find a podcast, listen to it, write it, and then I actually go back and I listen to the podcast to see if they actually listen to what they're saying. So I have a month where I'm just reliving all of your old episodes all over again.
It's good stuff, man. I appreciate it.
So, well, thank you.
Well, thank you, man. It was great having you out on the podcast. Thanks for, again, being accommodating to rescheduling this several times.
You should get one of those camera actor things, where they click it for the takes.
Take 3.
Happens. Take 3.
I'm going to have to put that on there, yeah.
So, well, I would say go out and get out of that little hut of yours and then go backwards, warm up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm going to give that a shot.
So I'm going to go relax for the evening and have some dinner and spend some quality time with the wife.
All right, brother. Have a good one.
All right, Jason. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for stopping by and checking out the episode. Be sure to check out the website, arcjunkies.com, where you can stream past and present episodes, check out show sponsors, and pick up Arc Junkies merch to support the show. Hope you all have a kick-ass week. Stay safe out there, and until next time, make every weld better than your last.